I love your funnel. It's huge.
Flying electric boat? No, you would need a $50 million to do that. How do I play the game in the world that is given to me, right? Building the next generation maritime company. Humans can actually go outside of this planetary body and go somewhere.
Wow. Hey guys, welcome to Silicon Valley Girl. Today we have another great guest, a conversation with Sampriti, who came to the US from India and is now changing the world of boats and building a maritime company. There is a boat right there. You can actually ride it. This is an electric boat which is going to be autonomous. We're going to try it. We're going to talk to Sampriti about her journey from being in India to raising from some of the top investors here in Silicon Valley and about changing the world. Let's do it. I am excited. I hope you are too. Sampriti, thank you so much. I am so excited to be your guest and to have you on this interview/podcast. Please tell me, you have the most fascinating story I've ever heard. You're building this amazing company. Can you start from the beginning? Because you're from India. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about your childhood? Can you talk about how you got here?
You know, similar to you, I was not born and raised here. So I was born in India, in Kolkata. Have you been to?
I've heard of that place, but I've never been to India.
Okay. The only common thing with Kolkata and San Francisco is that we have a bay, the Bay of Bengal, and we have the Ganges there, you know. So I grew up in Kolkata, very different, life, society, and I don't think building flying electric boat was not really part of that plan. But at the age of 12, I got really fascinated by space, whether that was reading Stephen Hawking or watching the Apollo mission to the moon, which had a profound impact on me. The idea that humans can actually go outside of this planetary body and go somewhere. This curiosity for the unknown, the exploration, that really fascinated me. And I learned about NASA and, this cool lab in this other country. Everything I learned was through movies, right? Mm-hmm. And Discovery Channel. But, I was not the stellar student, actually. I went to a small, what you would call equivalent of community college. Mm-hmm. And, people's expectation of me was, well, maybe I'd, be a traditional housewife, just which is very common in India. Maybe I'll work in a front desk. Maybe I'll work in IT, right? Mm-hmm. But it was when I was about 20, we just had our computer at our home and internet connection. I don't know if you remember the days when you had to go to a cafeteria to get internet, but it was the first time we now have internet at home. And I had learned from some folks about this thing called internship. And I was like, what is an internship? Mm-hmm. Well, it turns out you get to go on an airplane to America and work on cool science stuff, mm-hmm. work in a lab. And I always thought that's what I wanted to do. I want to invent and I want to build. But, I was from a small college and there was no direct path to go. So I Googled Internship American National Lab and, all the emails that I sent saying, hey, I'm a junior in this college. I'm trying to redesign a Mars rover. As by the way, I don't really have resources to do so, but here are my sketch.
But you had background already, why were you suggesting that?
Oh, yes, I was studying electrical engineering, but I was so fascinated by space and stuff. I was reading and learning by myself, just self-taught ideas. First week, nobody replied. Everything was a no, but I think I was so into it, when I am obsessed with an idea, I just go till I drive it to a success or failure, and I have literally not have any stone unturned, mm-hmm. almost So one in over 540 emails.
Wow.
Got me an internship.
How many answers did you get to those 140?
4 probabilistic yeses to have a conversation, 2 interviews, and 1 worked out.
I love your funnel. It's huge. How long did it take?
The first batch of like emails was about 3 weeks, like to send everything, but I was like not moving much from my computer.
And you didn't have anyone who went through the same experience? Was it just you?
Yeah.
You came up with this idea, got inspired, did everything by yourself?
Because the way it worked was I had gone to some conference. I used to also sneak into science conferences and such. So I had 1 or 2 contacts name I got, and I just was trying every path. I didn't know anyone in America. I didn't have any family in America. I was like, but there must be a way.
Did you ever share with your parents that you want to go to America? No? But how would they react? What do you think?
Well, when I said, I don't think they, we did not know anyone close then, who had gone through the entire experience. So we had to find out who went through that. I mean, they were surprised because that was not a very straightforward thing expected out of me. I don't think I was not the stellar student crushing it. I just was a girl with weird, interest. I wanted to build a sun tracking solar panel for a Mars rover and started a space club in my college. But that's such an unusual thing for an Indian girl to do. So I was could not fit in. I was the nerd, the outlier. But by no means I was this stellar in class student.
But still, you were different. Were they supportive of that?
I mean, I was kind of left alone to be whatever I wanted to be. Sort of. I was a little.
Yeah, because I feel like you're coming from a traditional. I come from a very traditions are super important in Russia. You have to be married by a certain age. You have to have kids. It's changing now, but it used to be very different.
I was a rebel. That's probably a good way of putting it. Just finding my way. How do I get out and break the convention and do my own thing?
Have you ever thought of okay, I need to be like everybody else because this is weird. This is getting me into trouble.
No, I think when I have a strong conviction about it, when I have this strong feeling that this is the right thing to do or this is what I should go for, I think I'm very comfortable being alone in that journey. It's weird. It's almost, I can give you an example. I mean, people might have different says about it, but back in the college, I don't really know what they call in America this, but hazing is a thing older students do to the newcomers. And you kind of have to play along with it and be okay. And the first day of college, I called out on it. And I was no, this is not the way to do introduction. And I'm not going to do this. And I got banned from all this social interactions, and they were well, the senior's not going to help you, and you're not going to get any help. And I was oh my gosh, I'm just famous in the college first day. But that was the thing, right? If you feel fundamentally from inside that this is the right thing to do, this is the right choice to take, and it all worked out. I mean,
yeah, I love it. There are several things that are fascinating about this company. So they've raised a little bit over $11 million, but they already have a boat that you can ride in the bay. So not only it's electric and it kind of flies about the water, so the trip is really comfortable. And what always fascinates me about companies in Silicon Valley, you think okay, it's a boat, okay, it's electric, okay, it flies over water. But the thing is, there is a much bigger idea behind it. It's actually mapping out the ocean. Just imagine we have all the roads on land and we're using the land all the time, but we still have water which we can use and navigate on it. And Sampriti is not only building a boat, she's building the whole ecosystem. Wow, and you have a sister, right?
I have an older sister.
Is she in India or is she here?
She's in India, married with,
So she followed the traditional.
And she's very successful also. I mean, but she followed, did her schooling, went into, started in IT sales, and now she's actually going to be leading in one of the, as a manager of the entire Indian territory for Dell. Yeah, she did her MBAs and all of that stuff.
Interesting. So you're both super successful. Maybe can you share any tip for a parent? What do you think your parents did? Like, did they help you in any way? What was so special in your upbringing?
Well, this is something I don't know, I say on the TV or like in an interview, but I grew up in a very chaotic family. I mean, actually it was not the most functional family, and I think in a sense I did not grow up very close to my parents. So I ended up being kind of in many ways very introverted. So I think in some ways kind of being in your own head and having your own imagination.
It's actually helped you, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's just like almost you trying to find your own purpose, because you cannot associate easily with everything that's around you.
Okay, so you did that. You got your internship while doing bachelor's, or was it after that?
So I was still doing my bachelor's, I missed my junior year. Yeah, so that's the first time I came out, and I got an internship at Fermilab. It is a Department of Energy. I loved physics. I think for me, understanding why the world is the persuasion of truth and being curious, like that's really what drives me. If you think about even at Navier, and we'll come to that, but it's really like exploration, is being curious of what's out there, and that's what physics is, So yeah, I came to Fermilab in Chicago, and that was a big turning point of my life.
That was your first time abroad, right?
That was the first time I ever rode an airplane. I ever went anywhere alone, and all the way across the ocean, yes, to a different country altogether. Wow. And it was pretty terrifying, actually. Yeah. I was in tears in the layover at Frankfurt, because I've never seen a big airport before in my life.
But do you remember your first thoughts when you stepped out of the airplane in the U.S.?
I mean, I didn't know how to figure anything out, but one of the funniest things I still remember was, two things. My house, like where I was like staying at a dorm in Fermilab campus, is super nice, but I'm like, look out of the window and the roads are empty. And if you live in India, there's millions of people. You have never seen such empty road. And I was like, wow, if you die here, nobody will ever know. What happens is like you're used to a place where people are shoulder to shoulder, there's people everywhere, and suddenly you're at a place, I've never seen empty roads like that around me, and I'm like, wow. The second thing that was really funny was like, and it's a much more suburban thing, but I walked the road and somebody passed me by and said hi, and I was like, why did this person tell me hi? We have never met before. Yeah. And I go to a Dunkin' Donuts, and then they say, hi, how was your day? How are you doing today? And I was like, why is this person asking me questions? These are like, as an immigrant from different culture, I will always remember my first Dunkin' Donuts experience. It was like, I just came here to get a donut, and this person is asking me, how's my day?
Yeah.
Like, how does it work?
I know. And like compliment you on your outfit.
Yeah, and I was like,
do I know you?
Yeah, you just did not know, how the culture is.
So you did your internship. You graduated from MIT as well, right?
Much later.
So did you go back?
Yeah. So I did my internship, and I think that was the first big turning point of my life to see, I was with a bunch of people from Russia, Italy, other people of my age, and I was like, wait, they have a much more different life. Like, they are roaming around everywhere, traveling the world, they're of my age. Why in India we are confined as women to this like certain ways and structure that you get out of your college? I mean, if you have a college degree, great. Then you get married. Who you marry is the biggest accolade of your life, and that's it. And what I wear is also judged back in India, right? So these were lots of questions that kind of became so obvious to me, and I think that kind of gave me some sort of shift of mind. But I did go back to India to get married, which did not happen. I personally wanted to get married when I was out of school, and although I was very heartbroken looking back, that was one of the best things. So long story short, I finished my junior year. I came back to America again for a second internship, co-op for right after finishing graduation. Then I went back to India thinking I'd get married. That didn't happen.
But it never happened.
And I thought, I mean, that was the second big turning point of my life, because I was like, well, I thought that this is the most important thing. So I'm sure you relate to some of the conservative thinking, right? And I think when that didn't happen, I did have that moment of existential crisis, you know. I was not close to my family. I was not close. And now I don't have a husband. And you're like, what is my life about? Yeah. Then I ended up backpacking India. That was really like, okay, I don't really have anywhere to go. My life might as well be over. So but if it's over anyway, what is the most craziest thing I can do? No, that's a very great question to ask yourself, actually. I mean, I'm not even kidding. When you're at the rock bottom, you can stay at the rock bottom, or the only way is up, right? Yeah. So you're like, okay, this is the worst anyway. So what is the craziest thing I can do, because nothing matters? So it's like, okay, I'll just go on a backpacking trip. It was the second big turning point in my life, and survived landslide. I was okay, but during the trip that happened, and that's made me realize, you know, the fragility and importance of, you know, life by itself. So that was really the backbone of doing everything I do today.
And then you came back for your master's, right?
Yes. So while I was backpacking, I'd applied to a few schools and I got a scholarship.
I like it.
Yeah.
While I'm backpacking, I'd apply.
That was, yeah, I was like, you know, maybe I'll try to go back to America. And yeah, I got a scholarship and I came to the Ohio State University, and I always wanted to study aerospace engineering. That was my dream, to work at NASA. So that's what I went to do, and moved to Columbus, Ohio. Yeah.
Yeah. And then transferred, or how did that?
No, so I finished there and ended up working at NASA for a bit. But I did a dual, kind of a, you know, two sides of my work. So I did aerospace, but I was also working on nuclear engineering. So I was funded by DOE, and my work was on a new kind of a nuclear reactor. Well, so I kind of moved from doing more, you know, looking at accelerators to find more ground truth about the universe, to more on applications, and we can get into that later why. But my work was, you know, got a lot of attention, and then I came to MIT. I applied 3 schools, got rejected, a couple of them, but then one day I was in my office and I got an acceptance letter from MIT.
Was that a master's program?
PhD.
Or PhD. And you did
forever in school. So
was it 5 years PhD, 4 year PhD?
5 years.
5 years.
So grad school of 7, you know, master's 2 years, PhD 5 years.
And so after you graduated, when did you start the company?
So this is, while in school, I started something in maritime, which almost sometimes, you know, everything feels so connected and almost a continuation.
Yeah, I like your story, how you told, I read that you first you were exploring the space, and then you realized we have ocean, and you couldn't, after the plane crash, right?
Yeah.
You realized we can't find things in the ocean while we're exploring space.
Yeah.
Was that like the turning point of your career when you wanted to go from space to?
I think that was a third turning
back to
point.
Earth.
Yes, yeah. Third very major turning point, because I always thought like I'd work in space. I mean, I always felt that's what calls me, the big unknown. And it was at MIT, I was building these underwater drones for monitoring, you know, nuclear reactors, boiling water energy systems and stuff. And Malaysian airline gets lost. And you're like, wow, it's 2014. We are talking about robots taking over the world, and we cannot find a massive airplane that gets lost in the oceans. And the physics of the problem is simple. Why can't we have a bunch of robots with sensors on them look for it? Then you come to this realization that we know less about our oceans than the moon surface. So that led to commercializing my first product that I, you know, the drones that I worked on as a PhD student at MIT, and it was called Hydro Swarm.
That was your first company?
But it was in school, got very complicated with me being immigrant. A lot of the application was in dispense.
Yeah, like nuclear, right? It's very, and NASA, right?
Yeah, I mean, this was more on like, I was still on a visa, like getting out, and this, you know, kind of got a lot more attention before I could even finish school. Drone market crashed. By the time I finished school, I lost my IP, like the, MIT had given IP access to another defense company. It just became very complicated, but I was very bullish in the space. And so after I graduated, that one had to wrap up. But my dream was always to build a next generation maritime company. I mean, what is the equivalent of SpaceX or Tesla or, you name it? What is it for the ocean?
So this is how you started the boat. And you started a year and a half ago.
So technically, again, the build started a year and a half ago. Of course, I've been in this for a while. The company, the idea of building a transportation company was in 2020. Initially, we were working on the autonomy side a bit more. And 2021, we decided, okay, let's build a vessel end to end. And 2021 later, got to raise some money. I mean, nobody would believe that,
Were you already here?
Mm-hmm.
So you moved for this company?
Yeah.
After MIT,
I moved to
graduated,
California,
moved here?
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In San Francisco.
Started a company all by yourself, or you had co-founders?
I initially started the company alone. Then I brought in someone for a bit, in 2020. So 2019 is when I started with the ideas and raised some initial capital. Then I brought somebody more on the boating side of things to get the boat building going, and then scale from there.
So this was the first prototype, and they built the software on using this prototype as the demo and the test while they were simultaneously building the two main production boats.
Mm-hmm. This doesn't look like that.
No, this was just to tinker on.
Wow. Do you understand what's going on here?
At a very high level. I was an engineer in undergrad, but I never worked in engineering. These guys are really,
they're the ones.
They're the ones who are doing it all.
And Sampriti can also understand everything.
Yeah. She's a PhD in aerospace engineering.
And this is similar, or?
Yeah, so this is a lot of electrical, but then there's software downloaded as well. That's the systems control that really allows the boat to take flight and have that perfectly smooth ride. Yeah. Because it's constantly updating, and the flaps of the wings are constantly moving to adjust for the different wave and wind and weight distribution.
Did you ever collab with other companies? Because there are boats that use similar systems, right?
Yeah, so there's only one other competitor that is doing electric hydrofoiling, and they have a different foil technology. Theirs actually doesn't have the flaps at the end. Theirs is just, it rotates the two wings to steer that way instead of using just individual flaps on each.
But hydrofoiling is like an older technology, right?
It is an older technology, yeah. So Boeing was the first one, I think, to come out with a hydrofoiling boat. It wasn't as stable and controlled. And so that's where a lot of the machine learning and systems control innovation that's gone on in the last couple of years is really put into effect and makes that really stable, clean ride.
Why did you even do that? Why couldn't it be just a regular boat on the water?
It makes it much more efficient to have it out of the water because there's less drag. So less drag means less energy needed, and that makes it much more reasonable to use electric as well.
Got it. Can you talk about your fundraising strategy?
Oh man.
Because you have some cool investors.
I don't think there was any strategy there. It was the same thing as sending out 500 emails kind of a thing. I think I'm a master at knocking every door
so
off
you're
or
just
impossible.
cold emailing investors?
Or getting introduction. I mean, I think, maybe people don't talk about this, failures a lot, right? And my academic life at MIT was fairly successful. I did good work, it got attention, and everything was working out till the first company didn't work out, right? I think that after drones, there was this period then people were not so excited about hardware anymore. So going to people, people just don't understand maritime. It's the same as 20 years ago if you told people, hey, I'm going to build a car company as a venture-backed company or a space company as a venture-backed company, and people wouldn't invest, right? And yet you are able to see where the world can go. So getting people to invest that, hey, I'm building boats, but wait, but the boating market is little bit, and we are not talking about boating, we are talking about a whole maritime company, and it was really hard to raise money. So you knock every door till you get the yes. I think it was just the same process as like.
Who's your first yes?
Actually, the first yes was before this idea was formed. So it was, just the bigger idea was the same, that I want to build a next generation connected vessels and ecosystem for maritime industry. And that was actually Adam Draper.
Oh, son of Tim's
Draper.
son.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He believes in sci-fi ideas, where everybody will think you're crazy. And I was like, look, I want to build all these vessels, and at the core of it is this operating system, which is like very specific. I want to build this, whole ecosystem of vessels, and then they all operate with each other, and
what do you mean by that? So that they like map everything, map out?
Yeah, the thing I used to build underwater drones, overwater vessels, and eventually I see all this ecosystem being connected in terms of like communication, data gathering, to like
what's happening
deployment,
where.
Situational awareness, but also like eventually how do you build everything on the marine network come under the same
and no
umbrella.
one was doing that?
No,
because Google Maps are mapping the Earth, right? Teslas are mapping the roads, but no one's doing that.
So my underwater drones were meant for the ocean mapping, and then a couple of other companies came, like Sail Drone now does equivalent of what Planet Labs is doing, like mapping ocean bottom. My thoughts was more than just mapping. I mean, I wanted to actually eventually like exactly what we're doing, like actually push on autonomy for vessels and scalable fleets that are used for work application and stuff. But I wanted to tie all the products under this, same kind of software communication architecture that is like very optimized for marine application.
I love how when you look at the surface, you see a boat, but there is so much more behind it. And I think this is what makes genius entrepreneurs different from just entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs, they see like a smaller problem, but I feel like you're a genius, seeing a much larger problem. Wow, that is so fascinating. And you raised 17 million?
No, we raised now about a little over 11 million.
Like when I think about tech companies that raise tens of millions of dollars
to get to something like this,
and you like raised 11. We see the product right here, and you can actually, and I've tried it, and it's amazing.
Yeah, so when I went and tried to raise, and this is so interesting, right? I've spent building products, and I've also failed. And I think the reason it was fast this time is like, I think more you fail, you get faster in iteration, right? You learn what to do things differently. We did things in a very unconventional way. So when I started to raise, everyone was like, there's no way you can build a full-scale 30-foot boat less than in 5 years and less than $50 million. Of this, a flying electric boat? No, you would need a $50 million to do that. And they would give me ideas of how little headphone to get out of the lab would take, like to reach production would take that, right? But you broke down the problem, like, okay, people are not giving me money, this is the money I have, so how do you figure this out? So what is the core of the company? The thesis started with the fact in Navier is to build next generation marine vessels that are drastically lower in operational cost. So we said, well, we have to build electric hydrofoiling boats. And the way we went about it is that, well, we don't have tens of millions of dollars to build a huge team or a shipyard or, get all the equipments to build all this stuff. So, okay, the first step was like, who is the best in building hydrofoil? So a called Paul Beaker, who is the, if you know America's Cup, like the sailboat races in the bay, Larry Ellison's Team Oracle, his chief naval architect who builds this like $40 million like race boats that go on foil. He's like expert. So I was like, hey, I know you build this super expensive stuff, but this is my vision. I want to start a whole new kind of a transportation network on the water, and I think foils is the way to go. Will you like to work with me, like on a project? Then,
What did he say?
Yeah, I convinced him. I mean, he did his diligence to make sure that I was actually a legit person, and like,
But did he ever say like, oh, that's impossible, like all the other people?
Well, I mean, he said this like everybody tried to, run this, do this. I mean, there are people who is like, is the big goal, right? I mean, you're talking about like, it is a big goal.
But it's interesting, like your way of thought, your way of thinking, because it happens to a lot of us when we try to pitch a crazy idea, and people who are also professionals in the field and they're the best, they're like, this is impossible. And you're only way is to continue pushing and proving that you actually believe in it, and sometimes you even doubt it, right? Because everyone keeps telling it's impossible.
100%. The two things I always say, people would say, if it is against the laws of physics, it's possible. I say two things. If it is not against the laws of physics and economics.
Love it.
You can make something possible. I mean, you can build a ladder to moon, maybe. I mean, this might be a way, but like, is that like economically feasible, right? Similarly, I think what was obvious here was that, we saw what technology like battery electrification and cheaper, faster manufacturing has done to space and to land, right? Like last 10 years in maritime, I got convinced that when you apply this to maritime, which is $1 trillion industry but super fragmented, suddenly you're not able to build a boat that is slightly better. You're able to build a machine that is a step function different, better, efficient, cleaner than anything else that's out there. It's like having a car. What we have is horses, and suddenly you have a car. It changes the way we see our waterways. So as we were talking about me feeling bullish about something, then it doesn't matter what the world is saying, because you are so focused and you see so clearly what the world can look like. I don't know, like you just can't help but go towards it, and you just...
Wow, I admire that.
I don't know, like, and it's almost like a calling, right? You see it, and how can you not do what you know needs to happen and exist? But I do totally agree with you, because especially when you fail, there are people who will doubt you. There are people, especially you're a woman. I mean, I don't think too much about, all the unfairness in the world. One thing is that when you grow up in a country like India, you start with the premise the world is unfair. You don't start with the battle, life is fair, right? You have to figure out, well, life is unfair, it's not equal. How do I play the game in the world that is given to me, right? But there are times that you get doubts, right? Everybody's like, well, she's great in academia, but is she good at running business? Or like, pointing at your failures. Oh, but that happened, is she... And these self-talks can oh my gosh, you start doubting yourself.
But your determination helps you get through. Do you have a coach, therapist who helps you, or is just you?
I have great friends. I have had coaches, and I have great advisors. I mean, like people I look up to, people, who are a phone call away. And I think it's always that reminder of that time, when you're at the rock bottom. Many times we'll get there, right? You just have to remember, like, you can give up or you can get up. But if you give up, what's next? You're going to stay there, right? Where will you go?
Wow. So that guy from Oracle joined after you talked to him and presented your idea.
Paul, pitched him the idea. And then we got him on board, worked with him for a while, got sketches out, proved to some early investors that people will pay a deposit to buy this boat as like a recreational boat. Look, at the worst case, we will be a recreational boat company, and that's still a positive return. So we can sell 1,000 boats. Like that's a sustainable company. And I'll come to that as a business model. That was actually important, to build a business that is sustainable and not relying for the whole bigger vision to play out. It's, because Silicon Valley is so reliant on venture money just to scale, right? I wanted a business that was also fundamentally sustainable.
Interesting, but do you ever feel like this strategy can distract you from actually pursuing the bigger idea? Because yes, you have to work on economics, work on selling, and you spend your time on that instead of pursuing something.
The way I see it is, actually, I think Elon did it pretty well, right? Like, going to Mars is some of the end missions, and he kind of have steps in between to go to Mars. This is not actually a distraction for us. This is actually super important to do it, because here's the thing. Navier is a three-phase problem, the way I see it. The first is a technology problem. Can we build a boat? Can we build a marine craft that is 10 times more efficient than a traditional gas boat, and can act as a mobility vessel? So technology problem we solve. The second part is the production problem. This goes back to my what I was telling is like a business idea. I mean, something whether that will work depends on both physics and economics. So we got the physics part. Now the economics part is, I can build a crazy expensive vessel, but that will never, for mobility market, yes, I can sell it to 10 yacht owners, but that won't change the world. So the second phase is production, where we are like developing the playbook that how do you make it scalable at, and make the unit economics of making this work as transportation craft work. And to do that, you're actually making a bunch of boats that you are going to sell. And that problem set, and the funds that comes in, the cash flows, is really helping us to build that out. Think in a way Tesla Roadster, right? Yeah. But not only that, all the technology we are developing, that's really like the data we collect, that's also helping us to build our autonomy system.
Got it, yes, it's still part of the system.
It's still part of the system. And then you will see how, long story where, how users will use their boat and how the, mobility work. There will be a lot of overlap. The way we think of like boating, the model of it will change. I mean, we are going to have different ways people can access, boating.
So you currently have 2 boats, right? One in the bay, one here. Is that the second boat? Or is it going?
Yeah, this is one, and the second one is on the water.
Yeah.
Taking around people
and this
right
one
now.
Stays here, right?
Both of them are on water sometimes.
Okay.
Today it's here, getting some work done.
Got it. So next year you're going to produce 70 boats? I remember from talking with Sam.
Next year we are looking at 30 to 40.
30 to 40.
Yeah. And and then scale to 200 boats a year the year after.
So what are your main problems or tasks right now as a founder? So you're doing a lot of press, right?
So that's been great inbound press. The first thing, production problem is 10x harder than a technology problem when you really think about it. But then, as I was telling you, that, well, you can have a great solution, but if it has to meet both the physics and the economics laws. So physics we proved. Economics is about doing this production problem. Can we now build it at scale? Can we design it for manufacturing at scale such that, this can make sense as a part of a transportation network worldwide, right? And therein comes in. I mean, I'm building these boats anyway. This is what helps us to build and sell the boats to boat owners. I mean, obviously replacing gas boats is huge, right? But also the process of the production, getting the cash flow from there, so that we can actually build out the vessels that we need for transportation, and also the data from all this recreational boat are going to be used in, building out autonomy. Yeah. So once we finish this phase, then it will be our operation phase. So I think one of the things that, I realized while doing this startup is when you do a very complex startup like this and you don't have billions of dollars in resources, but are pretty limited in resource, at any phase you have to really focus 80% of the time into one thing and do it really well and really win and nail it down. Yeah. I think that's the one thing we did unconventionally. I think when we would go to VCs and everyone, they are asking, oh, did you get this LOI, this partnership? But if you're trying to chase everything, you're not getting anything done. You'll have a crappy prototype, you'll have a LOI and a partnership that means nothing. And you realize, that's, in 2027, when you have boats, I will take this. And what is the boat doesn't even work. These are some of the things we definitely did different. We were heads down doing engineering.
How many people on the team now?
Our internal team is about 10 folks. But the way we work, 10 folks did not build this boat. At the peak it was 65. So I have a shipyard in Maine that does the build.
But they're contractors, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we had all this structured team work very closely with my core team, and it worked out really well as a small company at the early stages because the management overhead is super low, right? So there's a shipyard, there is power team, there's gear train, there is my naval architect team, and this is my core software electromechanical integration and basically our core team. And they all came together and it was magical. I mean, one of the things that still blows my mind that the integration was so smooth and seamless.
How did you hire them? Was it hard to hire those people?
My current CTO was a really hard hire. Kenny, and he's phenomenal. He's the guy who makes a plane the boat flies. I mean, he made everything fly. So he makes it fly. The very first time he loads a software control, it flies. Kenny was also, I mean, I'm a master of cold reach out.
So you just did cold outreach?
Yeah.
No intros, no nothing? You just...
Yeah, so first was cold.
Where was he before?
He was at Kitty Hawk.
What was that?
It's the flying car, VTOL, the flying car company of Larry Page. And, he was a senior flight controls engineer. And then before that, he was at Uber ATG on autonomous vehicles.
Okay.
Before that, he was doing flying drone kites for wind energy at Google X, and also MIT alum. So I saw his background, I was super impressed, but then I asked a few more other people and they were like, oh my gosh, she's the best. We went through the interview process with him, and then I was out at a dinner with my friends coming back from Carmel, and I got a call from Kenny. No, it was an email that he's not going to join. And I was just heartbroken. I mean, it was just like, people think about rejections from crushes and stuff, and I'm like, that was like literally you're pursuing someone and it's like a no. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I was like, where did it go wrong? I mean, how do I just called him right away and I was like, look, I want to know, I mean, we went through the whole interview process and, I thought he was almost sold. Mm-hmm. Maybe there is something I can do better, even if this does not, pan out. Mm-hmm. And so I asked him to let's meet in person. Mm-hmm. And so we caught up for some drinks and food at Alameda like the next day. And 2 days later, he said yes.
Fascinating. I like how you never take no as a no. You keep pushing.
I mean, no can turn into a maybe, and a maybe can be a yes, right? Yeah. In certain cases.
How persuasive you are, that person has to be on your team, you just know it and you...
I think sometimes you just know, right? I mean, it's the idea or a person or certain things, and you just know that this has to be a, part of this story, so.
Can you talk about getting Sergey Brin as an investor to your company?
Well,
cold outreach? No,
not cold outreach. That one was serendipity. He crashed my party.
Hillsborough House.
Hillsborough House party. I'm kidding, but I mean, he's a nerd. We have a community of entrepreneurs, scientists, and.
If you guys watch this channel carefully, I was at one of the parties, party number 3, with the white horse in the backyard. I think you remember this party, but it was super cool.
No, I mean, it was really, it was born, the community in Hillsborough was born from the ashes of pandemic, with everybody saying that, hey, SF is dead. And some of us were, well, wait, this is where innovation happened. We were convinced that is there any other place where the most outrageous ideas, from flying cars to, and now people, I think, believe with generative AI, people are moving back. Yeah. It's like, where else can you make this community? And, it's so special. And we wanted to break the narrative that SF is dead. Mm-hmm. So we said, okay, people were saying that in SF people don't have fun anymore, and, there's no socializing. So how do we bring the smartest and the brightest people together, but do it with a bit of fun? I'm not talking about being a party house, but really create the serendipity. And that's why all of our parties were actually Back to the Future.
Were you one of the people who started this thing?
Yes, I was.
How many were there? 9?
So me and my friend Tim and then Jeremy really started and Andre was a big, Karpathy was actually.
Oh yeah, from Stanford, right?
Yeah, Tesla, self-driving car.
And also Sigil?
Sigil? Yeah, Sigil was one of the folks, and I wasn't staying there. I mean, I really just wanted to build out the community. My work was here, so I would spend weekends and stuff. But yeah, event-wise, me and Tim were, started those things off, and we had many interesting people come by, and early day, Sergey dropped by. I was like, what is this bunch of nerds doing something interesting there? But he really supports big ideas, and he's big into sustainability, and really pushes people to solve hard problems.
And what was your stage when he invested? Did you already have your CTO, Kenny?
I had my
You
CTO,
had him?
Kenny,
So you were
yeah.
pretty like solid in terms of...
Well, you know, I mean, the boat was, when he saw it and I said that the boat would be done next year, he didn't believe me. He was like, no, I've seen hardware, come on. And it's funny, outside the company, he's actually the first person who drove this boat. He went out to Miami for our launch, and he's the first one outside our Navier team who foiled this boat.
That's a good sign, I guess, a good thing.
He's a great champion. He's a champion of solving hard things. And but yeah, I think we broke. I mean, you know, we beat expectations. I think
Absolutely.
everybody thought it would take much more longer.
Who are the top, I would say, like top 3 people who you look up to, who you ask for advice? Like, what would be your, not mentors, but like inspiration?
It's kind of interesting. I mean, I think, you know, it really varies because I feel like every person has a very different thing that you reach out to for, right? For business stuff, it might be, you know, one of my mentors, advisors, and how do I think through this XYZ. My best friend from grad school and her husband, who was also MIT, so yeah, he actually works with me right now in Navier. They live in Minnesota. She is like a big support system for me, like someone that I reach out to, you know, when you need to look at life from a bubble outside the bubble.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah. And she's a professor at University of Minnesota. And you know, one other, her name is Natasha Wright, and my other best friend also from grad school at Ohio State, Caton. I think sometimes having people who are outside, they're technical, they are, you know, doing wonderful things in the world. That's very helpful because to see the world from outside, to see the things a little bit differently.
Absolutely.
Having perspective of people who you respect, whose values and whose principles are important to you and you're aligned with is important in life to have.
Can you, okay, we're gonna wrap, this was amazing. I'm sorry guys, but I can keep talking. Like I would talk to you for days. I'm so fascinated by the way you're so focused and, you know, pursuing your goals. Can you talk about like what's the future? I know we talked about mapping the ocean, etc. But do you think this is the thing you want to do for the rest of your life, or you have even bigger dreams and goals?
The thesis with Navier is really building the next generation maritime company, right? Maritime has been traditionally, you know, this very fragmented, not scalable, and a legacy industry, right? Small boat builders or like, you know, maybe some giant shipping companies. But with electrification, autonomy, computing, the way the world is, now you can, if you zoom out, you say that's not where the world is going. The world is going in a way of scalable platforms with software at the core that will really change how things move. And those technologies have a huge impact on what, you know, the next generation maritime company and the industry would look like. And that's really the core of Navier, is building a company with like scalable marine vessels. And when I remember I told you about like, at the end I'm like a curious person who wants to explore, you know, new places in a sense. This is often a joke, it's about almost expanding humanity beyond the borders of land. Like suddenly turning the waterways into highways. You know, if you can move things on the water at the cost, speed, and convenience as land-borne option, then waterways are no more an obstacle, but a highway. So with the Navier 30, the first product, that's exactly what we're doing, you know. Why go from Redwood City to Berkeley could be, you know, 20, 30 minutes maybe, or, you know, on the water instead of 1.5 hours on a traffic, you know, congested road, or like San Francisco to Alameda or Oakland can be like 10-12 minutes instead of like 45 minutes stuck in the bridge traffic. So, and every marina could be a transportation hub. Like when you look at the piers of San Francisco, they're run down. I mean, the waterfront has so much potential. So at an age when people are talking about, oh, AI is taking job over, what really lights me up is the idea that if you make waterfront accessible, new economies develop, right? New waterfront infrastructure develop, new jobs get developed, like, and that's like, it kind of gives me chills. The same idea that, you know, what railway network did, what roads did. If this company, this works out, we have basically built the next railway network, right? And you know, if we can execute that, I mean, that would be the most, you know, biggest reward of my life. Is this all I want to build? I mean, I had a big idea.
This is already huge, I know, yeah.
Book of ideas. I mean, I was interested in, you know, the other thing that I'm really passionate about is energy, and I was working on a new kind of reactor design, and that's one of the areas still I'm very fascinated with, is building you know, really scalable solutions for nuclear energy, because I do believe that nuclear is the safest and the cleanest way to meet our energy demands, that is you know, for the future. I've worked on other areas of, like, you know, everything from uploading myself to the cloud to building drones and crafts and rovers for outer space. And people are always afraid of AI taking over, and I think AI, or you know, whatever we are in 10-100 years, is a natural evolution, right? It's just like, how do humans become from humans to superhumans? So you can think of it a little bit in the transhumanism side, like, you know, how do man and machine integrate? I mean, we are already integrated. You have a phone all the time, and an Apple Watch, and Oura Ring, and all of that. And I think that what is exciting is that how do we integrate, you know, AI and also robotics to transition from humans to overcome the limits of our biological self, to live better lives and do more. Like, why be 90 and have an aching knee when I could probably have an exoskeleton and I could be running around? Yep. So these are some of the ideas. I don't know when I'll have time, but I just love solving complex problems that, you know, if you solve, that fundamentally changes how we see the world.
That is fascinating. Okay, my last question would be, can you recommend one book or movie that everyone absolutely has to see or read? My
personal favorite that, you know, had a profound impact on me was actually a book called Namesake, and it was about an immigrant's journey from India to America, the dad going to MIT. I don't know, I used to close my eyes and I could see the whole book play out in my head, and I think...
and you basically lived through that story.
It was nothing dramatic, it is the story of people's everyday life, but there's beauty in the simplicity of, you know, everyday lives of people. So that's a really good book. Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman is a really good book if you like physics. That is one of the other books that had a lot of impact on me. The Foundation series is very good, and a book called Snow Crash. People will say it's from like Blade Runner 2049, but I think that our operating system on the boat is named Hero after the protagonist in Snow Crash. But yeah, those are some good books, you know, I grew up reading.
Thank you so much for this, guys. This was so inspiring, and yeah, makes you want to change the world as well. Thank you so much, Sampriti.
Thanks for having me.
And I hope that in a year or two, we're going to be commuting in the Bay Area with Navier.